Hi everybody, it's Lain, Ehmann with 30minutemartha.com. Thanks for stopping by to chat with me a little bit. You know I am a big fan of productivity and time management programs, and I check out just about every book I can find on the topic. And I just read one recently that I found online. A lot of people have been talking about it, and I wanted to share some of my thoughts about it with you. That's what I meant to say. It is called Todoodlist, and it's spelled Todoodlist. Todoodlist, and it's by Nick Cernis. His last name is Cernis, and I found it online at Todoodlist.com. It is a downloadable ebook, and right now it's selling for £6, which I have no idea how much that is in US dollars, but not as much as it used to be. Anyway, I wanted to just give you a brief overview of some of my takeaways from the book. It actually is a really interesting and cute book. It downloads, and it's about, I think it's about 40, no, it's more than that. It's about 80 pages, and you can read it on your screen or you can print it out, and I printed mine out. And it's very easy to read. His style is really engaging and conversational, which I enjoy a lot. And it's got some graphics and some funny stories and things like that. I think it could all be summarized in just a little bit of space. And basically, his idea is that we can reduce our complexity of our to-do lists. We go into this idea of using technology to make our lives easier, and we come up with all these color-coded calendars, and it doesn't really help us get more done. In fact, we end up spending more time working with our programs than we do working on our items. And what ends up happening is either we get lost in the complexity of it all, or we just abandon the system altogether. And I can completely relate to this because I recently bought a new computer, a new desktop computer, and I switched from a desktop PC to a desktop Mac. And one of the reasons is I wanted to use the iCal function and the Mobile Me, which allowed me to sync my online calendar among all my different Mac devices with my iPad, my iPhone, my desktop computer, and my laptop. And so I thought that was really cool to be able to sync all, add an item on a calendar to one, and then it would appear across all those different devices automatically. I have been a pen and paper girl with my calendar for years. It's one of my diehard systems is that I always write it down on paper, but having had several friends who swore by the Mobile Me and the iCal, I thought, I'm going to give it a shot. It did not work for me. I had appointments disappearing. It wasn't syncing correctly. I'd add something to one device. It would show up 3 times on another and not at all on the third device. And I abandoned it and went back to just the plain old to-do list on my cheap $1.99 notebook. And that's kind of what Nick is talking about in this book, is that the easiest way to keep track of our things to do in our calendars is usually the best way to do it. If we can reduce it to the simplest process possible, we're more likely to use it. And nothing really beats the old pen and paper. And in fact, he recommends pencil. So that's kind of the premise behind Todoodlist. And then he goes into some details about how he manages his to-do list. And instead of making a list like I do, which is just a linear list of things to do by day, he suggests organizing by project and creating chains of activities that need to be done. So for instance, if I've got planned my daughter's birthday party, that would be the main task that needs to be done. And then going out from that, I could have all the different activities related to that project that needs to be done. So it could be order birthday cake, it could be write up invitations, it could be buy invitations, schedule a party, all those different activities that relate to that one goal. And then he would suggest creating a different page in my notebook or a different section for each list that he calls a to-doodle list, because it's like a doodle. And then as I complete items, cross them off or erase them from the chain. So I really appreciated his idea of creating a visual picture of the things you need to get done. That's something I don't do enough of, and probably would have a better sense of my overall workload if I could do more visual pictures of things. I tend to be much more linear and like the writing aspect of things, as you can see from my to-do list. And so that's what I tend to do. And I still took several items from his book, even though I don't plan on converting 100% to the to-do list manner. There were several points in his book that I wanted to share with you. One is that he says complexity comes from two areas. The first area is the number of actions that we must deal with, and the second is the number of places or inboxes tasks come from. So if we have tasks coming from our kids, from the school, from our telephone, from our email inbox, from the neighbors, from church, from our work, via Facebook, all those different areas that things are coming at us increases the complexity of our to-do list or our life in general. I would also add that complexity comes from not having priorities that enable us to sort through those tasks. The number of places things come from doesn't bother me as much as not being able to rank those. If I get a request from the school and a request from the church, and not having a clear overall vision of which item might be more important, so I can immediately sort that and deal with it in the moment instead of having to set it aside and come back to it later, because that putting things off is really where the stress and overwhelm comes for me personally. Something else that he had was a 5-prong approach to dealing with that feeling of overwhelm. And number 1 was to automate, to take as many things as possible off your plate completely by automating them, whether it's paying your bills or sorting messages that are coming into your inbox. If you can automate the process, it's one less thing that you have to deal with personally. 2 is delegating, pushing those things off your plate onto someone else's. So for instance, I might decide that it's the kids' job to get their laundry from their room down to the laundry room, and then I will deal with it from there. But just removing one step in the process is, again, one less thing I have to deal with. Number 3 is reduce. So if I've got 75 blogs that I'm trying to keep up with, maybe I go through and just pick the top 10 that I read regularly, and reducing the amount of information coming at me or the number of tasks I have to be involved in will reduce my workload. Number 4 is drop. So just getting yourself out of them completely. Just decide I'm not going to read blogs anymore, which I would never do, but some people might decide that. Or I might decide, one thing we decided in our house is we don't subscribe to the newspaper anymore. It was just clutter, and we found that we weren't relying on the newspaper for our news. We were getting it from other sources, so we just dropped our subscription. And then number 5 is focus, and I think that's most important, because if you have a clear focus for the day or for the month or for the year or for your life, then all the other items that are coming at you don't matter as much, because you know definitely what your goal is for the day or for that time period, and you can sort through everything really quickly. So anyway, just some of my thoughts on Todoodlist by Nick Cernas. I'll put a link on this post in case you want to check it out. And tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about how you keep your to-do list. Is it in a notebook? Is it online? Do you doodle it out? I would love to hear some of your thoughts on how you manage your day. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Lain Ehmann with 30minutemartha.com, and I'll see you online.